Hi everyone, my name's Eddie Alidia, and this project will be examining Sammi and Ronnie's relationship in the second season of Jersey Shore. The theory that I will be using to examine the relationship between Ronnie and Sammi is the Relational Turbulence Model, also known as RTM. This theory is a perspective on communication and personal relationships that highlights how relationship transitions polarize emotions and cognitive appraisals and disrupt the exchange of messages between partners. Some components of relational turbulence model is relational uncertainty, which happens once people leave the initial stages of a romantic relationship, such as their first dates, and they begin to question what their relationship really is. Are they partners? Are they less than that? Are they more than that? Another aspect of RTM is partner interference, which is when one partner views the other of affecting the personal decisions that they have made, and both of these things combined lead to turbulence in a relationship. So, as stated earlier, we are examining the relationship between Sammi and Ronnie, who are cast members of the reality TV show Jersey Shore. Now, in the first season of this show, they were in a relationship, and at the end of that season, they broke up, and in the beginning of the second season, they have gotten back together. Now, their relationship has many issues. A couple of them are Sammi has very legitimate concerns about Ronnie's fidelity to her and whether he has been cheating on her. And another issue with their relationship is both of them have very bad tempers. And that leads to a lot of aggressive interactions, as we will get to later. And another issue they have is that they're really in an on and off relationship. Sometimes they're together, sometimes they're not, and it's a very toxic relationship. For this study, I only had two research questions guiding my experiment. The first one was, how does relational uncertainty and partner interference affect a relationship as it relates to the relational turbulence model? My second one was, has the relational uncertainty and partner interference resulted in more assertive messages between the two, as the RTM suggests? The way I conducted this research experiment was by watching all the second season of the TV show. The second season had 13 episodes. I watched every single episode in its entirety, and during this time, I noted any interaction that Sammi and Ronnie had over the course of the season. I wanted to focus on the conversations that were about their romantic relationship. I also made sure to document anything else I found relevant, such as any conversations they had with their friends, such as Snooki and Pauly D, about the relationship, as well as the famous reality TV show style interviews that they do with the camera crew, and made sure to know anything the two said about each other during those times as well. Aside from the research questions, some overall takeaways I took from this study was that interference from outside forces can increase relational uncertainty. And what I mean by that is the friends that these two people have around them. There was an instance in which Sammy's friends knew about Ronnie's infidelity, and they wrote an anonymous letter to her, and this caused Sammi to be irate and to confront Ronnie, which obviously would increase the volatility and the amount of aggressive communication in the relationship. I also found that relational uncertainty still exists even though the two people are not presently in a romantic relationship. At the start of the season, Ronnie and Sammi were not together, but they were still uncertain about their relationship and where it stood, and that really kicked off the start of the whole storyline during the season. And then lastly, I also found that heated arguments between Sammi and Ronnie increased in both frequency and the intensity of the argument as the season progressed, as both of them became more volatile from interference and uncertainty in the relationship. In trying to answer my first research question, how does uncertainty and partner interference affect a relationship as it relates to the relational turbulence model, I found that Sammi experienced a lot of self-uncertainty over the course of the season. She began to question whether she was the issue in the relationship because she was questioning his loyalty. Ronnie exacerbated this because he told her that his ex-girlfriend thought she was the issue and that she should be given a second chance. My second finding for my first research question was that relational uncertainty led Ronnie to cheat on Sammi. Ronnie did not feel like he was bound and had to be loyal to Sammi, so he had sexual relations with multiple girls at a nightclub in the first episode of the season. And later on, when Sammi learned of this, they had a very heated exchange with one another, and this caused a lot of volatility in the relationship between the two. And then my third and final finding when trying to answer this research question was that interference from Sammi caused a lot of intense emotions from Ronnie. Ronnie said that Sammi was ruining the relationship because Sammi was trying to control who Ronnie could text and who he could not. He also said that he was going to confess to his infidelity before this had occurred, and when Sammi learned of this, this caused more volatility in the relationship and a lot of lack of trust and lack of communication between the two. As stated before, my second research question was, has the relational uncertainty and partner interference resulted in more assertive messages between the two, as RTM suggests? And I found that it did. Ronnie, in the very first episode, was very uncertain about where things stood between the two of them, and because of this, he got very emotional and very heated towards Sammi when he was drunk at a nightclub and told her that she did not appreciate his love that he had for her, and began calling Sammi in front of multiple people and multiple cast members very vulgar names, and it increased the intensity and hatred that the two of them had for one another. Second finding was that when the two of them, Ronnie and Sam, had dinner together to try and figure out where things stood between the two, the dinner quickly turned into a heated argument between them in which Sammi said Ronnie was weird and not really present during the conversation, that he needed to fix it now. And she said that very bossy and very assertive. And Ronnie said this was her being Mr. Hyde, a reference to Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, in which the character has two very different personalities and often is used as an insult towards another person. In conclusion, I found that self-uncertainty and relational uncertainty can lead to an infidelity in a relationship and also lack of trust. I also found that relational uncertainty and interference do cause aggressive communication, as was seen in Season 2 between Ronnie and Sammi. As for any limitations for my study, I think one limitation was that there was a lot of prior history between the couple in Season 1. I think if I was able to watch that, I would have had some better data and more examples of relational turbulence between the two. And then lastly, one future research question I did have was, does the pressure of the relationship being filmed increase the chances of uncertainty and volatility in a relationship? And what I mean by that is there's a lot of pressure when all of your life is being filmed in front of a camera for all to see, and I wonder whether the mental health effects of that cause any relational turbulence between a couple. That is the end of this presentation. Thank you for listening. I hope you found it informative.